In fantasy football, investing in a team can turn out to be very fruitful for you, especially when that team you invest in absolutely blows all expectations out of the water, leaving you with all these guys who are overperforming. You definitely don't want to do that with a bunch of teams, because if they don't turn out, then you're looking really badly. But there are some teams that I think you can pull this off with, the obvious ones being Cincinnati, Minnesota, you got Philadelphia, Los Angeles, Tampa Bay. All these are offenses that you know are going to do well, so you don't mind drafting multiple players across your leagues on these teams because you know they're going to perform. But what are some other offenses that we could see performing this year? Some underrated offenses that I think we could see take a leap forward and become teams that we can draft multiple guys from and be very satisfied with the results. Today I have 4 offenses that I think has the chance to take a leap forward and become a team that you should heavily invest in. Now, what I'm not saying is that you should only draft from these 4 teams, and I'm also not saying that all 4 of these teams will pop off. These are just the 4 teams that I think have the highest chance to pop off. Maybe they were bad last year, maybe they're not viewed highly on this year. I just think these 4 teams have a chance to do well into 2025, so we should be drafting players from these teams. And let's start off with the most obvious one, at least when you're talking about me, is the Chicago Bears. My YouTube journey is 1 video so far, and in that video I was talking about year 2 quarterbacks that you should be taking in your drafts this season, and I raved about Caleb Williams and the unrealized potential this offense has now that Ben Johnson's there. And so, of course, this makes the video. If Ben Johnson turns Caleb around, he's turning around this entire offense. So, of course, I am very, very big on drafting Caleb Williams. I'm very, very big on drafting DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, even DeAndre Swift for where he's going right now feels like a steal. Taking as flyer and Colston Loveland, I'm game for all of it. And truthfully, let's just start with why Ben Johnson is one of the best offensive play callers in football right now. Ben Johnson has led the Lions to first in points per game last season. He was second in passing yards per game last season. That not only gives Caleb Williams a ton of value if he can pull that off with Chicago, but it gives DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Colston Loveland, Swift. You could throw Swift in there too. All of them get a ton of value from Ben Johnson adding a ton of juice to this offense. They upgraded the offensive line, which obviously you can't put fantasy numbers on that, but what it does is it allows Caleb Williams to hold on to the ball, which we all know he likes to do, but now he's going to be afforded that chance because of the upgraded offensive line. You also hope Ben Johnson kind of coaches him out of holding the ball for a long time. I think he will, at least a little bit, but again, this offensive line should help him, at least if he isn't going to stop holding on to the ball forever, find some guys downfield because he has more time to throw the ball. Right now, you can get DJ Moore as the wide receiver 21. Disclaimer, all the numbers I'm about to give you are on Sleeper. I'm going to do better about giving you more ADPs as far as like the average ADP from all the sites to make it a little more accurate, but currently we're going just off Sleeper numbers. And again, DJ Moore is going as the wide receiver 21 currently. Rome Odunze is going as the wide receiver 36. Caleb Williams as the QB 13. DeAndre Swift as the running back 28. Colston Loveland as the tight end 12, That just feels like all of them are going a tick further than they should be going, right? They're getting passed on just maybe a few picks too early. DJ Moore at receiver 21, I think that's roughly where I have him, so that's pretty good, but I really like Rome Odunze as the wide receiver 36. I think his ceiling is a high-end receiver 2, potential. We'll probably call it there, a high-end receiver 2 potential from Rome Odunze, and you're getting him as the 36th receiver off the board. That feels like great value. Caleb Williams, I think, has the potential to be a top 5 quarterback in fantasy this year, and you're taking him as the 13th quarterback in fantasy. DeAndre Swift, I think he could be a solid second running back option for you this season, and you're getting him as the 28th. That feels like the most insane one to me. I understand that Swift hasn't really done much past running back 15 or somewhere in that range, but even that range is a running back 2, and I think that's exactly what DeAndre Swift will be this year. I think the offensive line in front of him is just better, so there's better chances for running, even though his vision truthfully is very bad. But I think what really helps him out is the receiving upside with Ben Johnson. I really like DeAndre Swift this year at the 28. Now, say he starts going up and you're starting to have to draft him around RB20, RB18, then I'm not as sold on him, because that's the same situation we're drafting like David Montgomery and James Conner, and I'm not that high on him. But as the RB28 specifically, I want to make that clear. With how late he's going, I really like DeAndre Swift this year, and that's coming from somebody who's been very out on DeAndre Swift the last 3 years in a row, but he's going so late now. I think I'm very comfortable taking him now. Next up, we have the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray, I'm iffy on. He's probably the one guy I'm iffy on in this offense, because he seems to do the same thing every year. I'm not sure he has a leap to take forward. I don't really even know if he has a step to take forward, to be honest with you. I think he's very limited on his touchdown potential, unless he starts rushing in more touchdowns, which, of course, changes the game completely. But he's going as the quarterback 10. He finishes right around there. Am I taking him as my QB 10? Probably not. I'd probably rather take, like I said, Caleb's going as the QB 13. I'd rather take a flyer on Caleb. I'd rather take maybe like a Jared Goff. Well, he also has some questions without Ben Johnson, so maybe not Jared, but there are other guys in that area that I think I would rather take a flyer on. However, if you're taking him at QB 9, 10, 11, that's, at the end of the day, that's right around where he finishes, so I wouldn't hate on you for it. But I also don't know if I love that option. With that said, though, everyone else I like. James Conner as the RB20 feels like an absolute steal. James Conner is one of those guys that every single year we decide he's going to fall off a cliff, and he just doesn't. He stays consistent, and he just seems like a guy that is never going to fall off a cliff, which obviously is not the case. He will eventually fall off the cliff, but it's turning into like a Derrick Henry situation. Okay, I can keep saying he's going to fall off the cliff, which I have been saying with Derrick Henry, but I'm officially at the point now where, man, I'm just going to wait till I see it. If I see it, then, maybe I can make a quick move on him and trade him before it's too late, but he's proven to be their guy. They actually gave him an extension. He's going to be the guy they use. A lot of people are worried about Trey Benson in year 2, but I don't think they are. Because if you were really worried about Trey Benson, I think you'd be drafting Trey Benson. But you're not drafting Trey Benson. Why? Because I don't think people are really that worried. I think a lot of times it's the age and maybe the Benson together that scares you. But I'm not worried about the age anymore. I'm tired of having that mindset, to be honest with you. Don't get me wrong. I'm trying to be optimistically cautious here, because I'm not worried about the age. But a lot of that's because he's the running back 20. If you were talking about the running back 12, I'm worried about the age. I'll take more consideration. But as a running back 20, I'm not really going to put that much fear into the age basket here. I'm not going to put much fear into the Trey Benson basket because of the extension, and just because of I watched how they used the two last year, and it wasn't close at all. And again, I don't think anybody else is actually that scared of Trey Benson, because nobody's really drafting him in rounds that it matters. And we have Marvin Harrison going as the wide receiver 17. I think this is the year Marvin Harrison takes a leap forward. He was touted as like a generational receiver, and there's reason for it. And I think this is something that we see going into year 2. This offense, the staff has already come out and said that they missed the mark on giving Marvin Harrison chances. They need to give Marvin Harrison more chances. And I will say he already had a pretty decent amount of chances last year. We're talking about a guy that had 116, I believe it was 116 targets last year. I mean, that's 20th in the NFL, so it's not like he's getting like the most targets, but he got targeted a decent amount last year, and I expect that number to go up. I truthfully expect as this chemistry between Kyler and Marvin grows, to this turn into a Kyler and DeAndre Hopkins situation. I think that's where we end up going with this. I really like Marvin Harrison. I think he takes a leap forward this year, and we'll see if it happens, but I think he does. So drafting him as the receiver 17 feels really, really solid to me. And then, of course, Trey McBride. I'm not going to spend much time on him because he is Trey McBride. He's going as the tight end too, but it's well-deserved. So all in, of course, on Trey McBride. If he could just get some touchdowns, man, we're talking about the easy tight end 1. Again, that kind of falls on Kyler Murray. He's just not very good, whether it's size or whatever the case is. He's not very good at throwing in the red zone. But if they figure it out somehow, whether Kyler figures it out or it's just longer touchdowns, whatever the case may be, Trey McBride with some touchdowns is easily the best tight end in fantasy football. So, of course, all in on McBride. So there's another 3 options I'm all in on. And then Kyler Murray, who I'm not against either. So that's why Arizona's another offense I think takes a step forward this year. Therefore, we see the fantasy options perform better than they're being drafted. Next up, I have the Dallas Cowboys, and the reasoning is simple. Every year Dak Prescott is healthy, Dallas ends up being a top 5 offense. It's like clockwork at this point. Dak Prescott and this Dallas Cowboys offense just performs whenever they're healthy. So currently you can get Dak Prescott as the QB 16, which feels unreal to me. It just makes no sense to me. The last 3 seasons he's been healthy. Last time he was 3rd ranked quarterback, then he was the 8th ranked quarterback, then he was the 2nd ranked quarterback. This seems like it's a no-brainer that he should be at least a top 10 quarterback, and for me, I think he is a top 10 quarterback or just outside of. And we can get him all the way down at the QB 16. That feels like great value, and again, an offense I'm investing in because of where you can get the players. Dak Prescott at QB 16 feels great. You also have CeeDee Lamb, who's going as the wide receiver 3, which obviously is a high price to pay, but he is worth the high price. He's one of those guys that kind of doesn't fail no matter what the situation is. Last year, Dak Prescott goes down week 7, I believe it was. CeeDee Lamb still absolutely performed. Let's pull up exactly what he did. CeeDee Lamb finished last season as the wide receiver 8, and that was with missing 2 games, and that was with Cooper Rush at quarterback. So he's kind of in that Justin Jefferson, DeAndre Hopkins tier of quarterback proof, I would say. CeeDee Lamb is, and then with Dak healthy, I mean, we're talking about a dude who, when Dak was healthy, he finished as the number 1 receiver in football. I expect nothing different from CeeDee Lamb this year. George Pickens is going as the wide receiver 28. He is in that tier, I think, of really good wide receiver 2s, your Devontae Smiths. I don't know if I'd go as high as T. Higgins because I think T. Higgins has a very, very high ceiling this year. So I'm not sure if I'd go that high, but I think he can end up being in this Devontae Smith, Jordan Addison, Jameson Williams tier, which is kind of exactly where he's going at the wide receiver 28. That's why, again, the Cowboys is another team I'd like to invest in. Stacking Dak with CeeDee Lamb feels really good. If you even want to go running back on this team, I don't know how I feel about Javonte Williams, but I do know that I really like Jaden Blue out of Texas. I think he's going to just eat up all the receiving backfield from this team. So I think there's an opportunity here for a ton of targets out of the backfield for Blue, and I think that's what we see. He feels like somebody who you take in your last few rounds. He's going as the 44th running back with a decently solid upside. I would say maybe his upside's only as your running back 3, but still, if you're talking about the last 2 rounds of your draft, it feels like a decent chance to take, one I'd be willing to make. Again, it's just another underrated offense I really like investing in. That's the Cowboys, that's the Cardinals, that is the Chicago Bears. I'd probably go Chicago 1, Dallas 2, Arizona 3, but at the end of the day, I'm comfortable taking players from all of these teams. I really like Chicago. I really went on a rant about it in yesterday's video, so if you want to see that, check out yesterday's video. I talked about who you should draft out of all these second-year quarterbacks. If you're interested, I also have a sports page. It's mostly a football page, just without the fantasy. I do cover basketball and hockey a little bit on the TikToks. It's something I'm trying to start doing more and more, but it's definitely very, very football heavy. So if that interests you, go ahead and check that out. If you haven't seen the TikToks before, go ahead and check those out. We have a fantasy TikTok, we have a sports TikTok, we even have a WWE, a wrestling TikTok. So yeah, multiple TikToks, multiple YouTubes. If you're interested in the content, go ahead and check it out.